Hi everybody, welcome back to another video, and today is a pretty exciting one that I've been working on for the past couple days, and this, my friends, is the complete recap of Stranger Things Season 1. This is the first of a 5-part series where I will dive deep into each season of Stranger Things from the first to the last, and I'll be doing it from the different months before the final season arrives. So I hope you guys are ready for this epic Stranger Things marathon I'm about to give you all. Because this is for you and for the Stranger Things fans out there. Just a reminder. So without further ado, sit back, relax, have some popcorn or whatever good 80s foods you would have there that you would probably want to eat right now, and enjoy the show. So, Stranger Things is set in the 1980s, and it is a pretty decent year, decade when this show was when it was set in, and it is pretty amazing. Not only set in the 1980s, it has homages to those movies. So let's get into the story. So the show is set in the year 1983 on the 6th of November, and it's in Hawkins, Indiana. One day, some guy's day at work goes south because he was allegedly unalived by some unseen creature at some U.S. government laboratory. Meanwhile, at some resident's house, 4 boys are playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, and here we get to introduce the characters, and later on we get to feel their moments and just deeply understand them. These are Mike Wheeler, Dustin Henderson, Lucas Sinclair, and Will Byers. The 4 boys are just in their base, or in Mike's house basement, playing some Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, because Dungeons and Dragons was pretty popular back in the 80s, and there was no technology, so this is how they had to play it in this show. So, after a nightly session of gaming, Will Byers bikes his way home. However, on his way, he is attacked by the same creature who unalived the scientist. And it's there we get to see some horror elements that is deeply captured in the show. As Will tries to fight off this creature, he is suddenly disappeared. Bam. We don't know what happened. And I remember the first time watching this, I was completely shocked. Anywho, on the following day, Will's single mother, Joyce Byers, she reports to the disappearance of her son Will because she was out working that day. And also his older brother Jonathan Byers, which we'll learn more later. She reports this to Police Chief Jim Hopper, who is the police chief of the Hawkins Police Department. And this is where the show gets pretty intense here. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of this and that, but I'm gonna explain to you guys so you would understand. You don't have to rewatch Stranger Things, but there is something up in the Hawkins laboratory. Not only is there's some strange vine-like thing growing in the basement, and it's caused by some open portal. And later on, the scientists claim that some girl went pretty far. And this is where we are introduced to Eleven. Now we don't know much about her yet, but in later seasons there'll be more information. So she was basically, when we were first introduced, she's this girl in a hospital gown, just escaped from Hawkins' lab, and she finds a diner, and she is caught by the owner Benny, who helps her a bit, and he thinks the girl is a runaway. He phones in the slides, but unbeknownst to him, all those phone lines and stuff connected by the Hawkins laboratories. It's just shocking. Imagine if you're doing a phone call with someone, and the next thing you know, your phone line is connected to the Hawkins laboratory. That'd be shocking, and I'm surprised how well it's done for that, in my opinion. Anyways, some agents come who are actually the workers at the Hawkins lab, some government agents. They unalive Benny, and it was, but Elle managed to escape, and this is where things get pretty interesting. Like earlier, we see Elle moving a fan, and as actually telekinesis, which is a superpower. You get to move your mind, and that, in my opinion, is one of the coolest superpowers I've ever seen. But anyways, they're moving on. Some residents of Hawkins try to do a search party to find Will, thinking he's missing, but they don't know the real truth. Mike, Will, Dust eventually do their own search party to find out where Will is. And during the rainstorm, they find Elle soaked in the rain and needed help. So afterwards, the boys bring Elle to Mike's house, where they disagree on what to do, and this and that. And while Mike is along with Elle just explained via words, bad men, means that she is literally on the run from these agents. And I was like shocked. It's like one of these moments in these movies where you are hiding someone in your basement from like someone bad or worse. It's just shocking, in my opinion, how this show does it. And it's pretty interesting in my own opinion. But anywho, we get to learn more about Will's life. Joyce's life. So Joyce, she's a single mom, and she was divorced from her ex-husband Lonnie, who lives in Indianapolis, and she and Lonnie are not on good terms, and neither are Will and neither are Jonathan and neither he or Jonathan. And yeah, it's just kind of like this family problems thing, and the show does that pretty well. Anywho's, while in the house, Elle managed to while Mike's giving a tour of his house, Elle just managed to point out a picture of Will, which means to determine that she might know where he is hiding. And as Lucas and Dustin show up, Elle just demonstrated her powers like the adults can't know. And yeah, every time Elle uses her powers, her nose bleeds. It's like she's making her a bit weak. So despite being a telekinetic teen, she has some limits. But more on that later. So in the basement, Elle just flips over that D&D board, and this is where things get pretty interesting. Not only is Will trapped is being hunted by the Demogorgon, but he's trapped in an altered dimension known as the Upside Down. Now, as the show progresses, a lot of stuff from Dungeons and Dragons are integrated into the show, and there'll be more a lot, but for now, it's just a Demogorgon. Meanwhile, Nancy Wheeler, who is Mike's teenage sister, said she has this crush on some guy named Steve Harrington. So one day, she, along with her best friend Barb Holland, they go to Steve's house for a little party thing. While doing opening a soda can with a knife, which you should not do because it's really dangerous, and I wouldn't do it in my opinion. Barb cuts herself, and while it's bandaged up, but there's something goes different. And while Steve and Nancy are upstairs doing something, Barb was just sitting outside, just waiting for Nancy done, and suddenly, wham, she's taken by the Demogorgon. And in the following episode, Barb literally tries to escape, but she is dragged by this Demogorgon, and people thought she may have made it out, but in later episodes, she doesn't. So meanwhile, Joyce, who is trying to find her son, she's been getting these phone call things on the other side, and every time it's a phone circuits, this creature, the Demogorgon, it's it can go through walls. It's like out of a horror movie, and these light bulbs exploding, this and that. So Joyce decides to get some Christmas lights and also just try to communicate to Will using the alphabet. It's kind of a communication kind of thing. It's interesting. So meanwhile, Jim Hopper is on a mission, just trying to find Will and also find out the truth of Hawkins' lab. And while investigating in the local library, that Elle, we learned that like Elle, she was like one of these kids like abducted, and it was part of this project called Project UK Ultra, which is actually a real thing in my opinion. According to like some article, it is an illegal human experimentation program designed by and overtaken by the CIA. And this happened like all the way back from the 1950s to 70s. So Stranger Things said in 1980s, but this is like a few years like before that, after that. Anywho, so Nancy just leaves Steve's house next day, and over time she realized Barb isn't missing, and you know, as a friend, she's like, maybe she ran away, but no, it's something different. As later on, hang on. While the boys and Elle try to find Will, we see that like the law enforcement supposedly find Will's body, and Mike gets pretty upset at Elle, and there's this whole argument thing, this and that. However, Joyce herself, she refuses to believe that Will's body that was in the Coralie, which is like a giant like cliffside thing where a lake is. I don't know much about ecological maps, but it's my best to explain. But anyways, while Mike is just really upset with Elle, he managed to hear Will's voice via radio, so realizes Will is still alive and he is not unalived. So the boys and the gang is back together. And that night at the pool party, Jonathan, who was trying to find Will, he's like taking pictures, and then one of the pics is like the last known picture of Barb Holland, and it's like this unseen, like this creature kind of thing, like something like this is like before Slender Man stuff, or even if that existed. But as much as like that, the other guys who are friends to Steve accuse him of spying on them and just rip the photos. However, Nancy keeps one and discovers that creature, whatever it is, which is the Demogorgon, probably took Barb to that unknown dimension. And afterwards, as the boys give Elle like a makeover, a wig and a dress, they go to the Hawkins school where they're talking about Will's fear. Will and stuff, and Elle manages to embarrass one of the bullies who bullies Mike, Will, Dustin, and Will like in the past, and it is just like one of the most insane moments. I don't want to stand here, but if you watch it, you'd be like, oh my goodness, that is so embarrassing. But anywho, we are then find out that like Elle tries to communicate through the school's radio, and it ends up exploding. Not to mention, having superpowers is cool, but blowing up a school radio like that, I'm not paying for those bills. Sorry. Afterwards, so Hopper, who is pretty much unconvinced like that Will is unalive, he decides to sneak into the Hawkins lab itself to see what all the fuss is about. So he did that, and he just finds a lot of stuff. But Hopper's little investigation mission goes short as he's knocked out by the guards. And meanwhile, the boys just talk with their science teacher, Mr. Clark, and if it would be possible to travel to ultra dimensions, in which he answers it would be a theoretical gate between dimensions. And it's just like a going through a wormhole kind of thing. So meanwhile, Hopper's back in his house. He's a little confused what happened, but as soon as he investigates his house further, he discovers like this little chip thing up in the window thing, and it is shocking. Like, imagine you're one day chilling at home, minding your own business, and suddenly the government's listening in. That is indeed super shocking, in my opinion. So yeah, the boys are like trying to find out what this gate is, and we actually get to see a bit of a pass for Elle in this episode. Elle was like one of these kids who like do some experiment things, and one day while in some tank, Elle just tried to spy on someone. I don't know who it was, but Basically, one day Elle just came across a Demogorgon, and that creature just managed to open a giant gateway. So that means it is just shocking how a one simple day of testing can go south. But anyways, back to the mission. Lucas accuses Elle for like messing up the compasses, which leads to a fight, and it gets pretty ugly. And Lucas just runs away upset, and Elle just runs away. It's just pretty shocking, like these shocking betrayals, this and that. Meanwhile, Nancy and Jonathan, they just form a plan to unalive this Demogorgon. While in the woods, Nancy just finds one of the open holes in the tree, finds herself in the Upside Down. And it's one of those shocking moments, like something out of Alien. I don't know if you guys see that movie, but it gives me that vibes a lot. But anyways, after a crazy chase of cat and mouse, Jonathan managed to save Nancy from that. So Nancy, she is like traumatized. Like imagine going through a scary dimension, something out of a horror movie. I'd be freaked out. And I would have someone to stay to hang out with me. I mean, yeah, I would like to do that. But however, Steve sees it as a form of jealousy. So the next day, Steve and his buddies drew like a pretty hurtful thing to Nancy on like the theater screening thing, like on like the outside. This infuriates Nancy so much, and then during like a bickering of Jonathan and Steve get into a pretty rough fight, which ends up Jonathan being arrested, and it was pretty intense. So anyways, we learn more about like Elle a bit in her past. So her mom's name was Terry, and so MK Ultra is this government testing thing. So yeah, there was this like Dr. Brenner who works in the Hawkins lab. Terry believes that Brenner kidnapped that young girl Elle, like when she was like born, and it's just like shock being kidnapped at birth. It's just insane. Anywho, while Micah does search for 11, they run into the same bullies who bullied them in tens, and it gets pretty out of hand, but thankfully, Elle saves the day, breaks one of the bully's arms, and just like, yeah, Elle is totally a cool person, like, especially with powers. And yeah, there's an emotional reunion, but the reunion isn't that all fun. So Lucas, who had been like observing for the Hawkins lab, the bad men discover where they live, so the gang has to like escape, and they flee on bikes, and there's this moment in the show where like one of the coolest moments an elf used their powers to flip over a truck, and it's insane. And I'm amazed how it was done, thanks to the visuals. So yeah, after all that, the boys hide out some junkyard thing, and then Elle just like Nancy managed to contact Mike with the walkie-talkie and just get the gang back together, and the only way for Elle to like ever enter the Upside Down is just be in this giant inflatable pool thing. Not like those big ones, like these medium-sized ones, you know, where they test something. Yeah. As Elle enters the Upside Down, she unfortunately finds Barb unalived. But thankfully Will is there, and they gotta go rescue him. So meanwhile, Nancy and John, they plan to like try to unalive the Demogorgon back at the house, and it gets pretty intense. Like, thanks to the teamwork and help from Steve Harrington, who has a bit of a redemption, but they managed to weaken it a bit. Meanwhile, Joyce and Hopper are captured by the government agents, and they exchange like try to help out, get Will as an exchange to find out where Elle is. So reluctantly they decide to. So Joyce and Hopper eventually get the Upside Down to search for Will. And while searching, we reveal a bit of Hopper's past. Turns out he was just a loving dad who had a wife and a daughter. Like, we get to see Hopper's past, like how like Hopper had tried and failed to save this little girl. I forgot what his name is, but he was like Hopper's daughter. Really bad. Rest in peace, that girl. But anyways, Back at the kids, the boys are just outnumbered by the agents. Elle uses her powers to unalive those guys, and then that attention of blood attracts Demogorgon, which it then comes and attacks the group. Thankfully, Elle was managed to use her powers to force push and completely unalive the Demogorgon, but also disappears herself. And we'll find out more about that in my next video. But anyways, Hopper and Joyce manage to find Will, break Rissa with CPR, and as he recovers, this is not over yet. So as Will is just back in the real world and chilling, he discovers this slug thing just comes out of his mouth. It's Will was trapped for a while, which means Will is still have a connection to the Upside Down, and this sci-fi Stranger Things story is not over yet. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I gotta tell you guys about my recap for Stranger Things Season 1. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to talking about the next 4 seasons of Stranger Things in the next 4 months. I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.